Who would a second loss this week for the Colts, who would it mean more for? Reich or Wentz, the coach or the quarterback, Key?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you will start to hear from the Indianapolis Colts fan base, not Chris Ballard, the general manager, or not Irsay, the owner, but you will hear from the base that these two guys may not be the right guys. Even though you go to the playoffs a year ago and you have Buffalo somewhat on the ropes in Buffalo with an aging quarterback in Phillip Rivers, because Frank Reich has had a different quarterback every single year as a head coach, and two of those quarterbacks he wanted in Phillip Rivers, or at least he was attached to them, whether he wanted them or not. He's been attached to them, Phillip Rivers and now Carson Wentz. And we get off to an 0-2 start with a quarterback that we traded a second-round pick that could be a first-round pick, depending on how things end in the season. People will start to say he may not be the right coach, or this, that, and the other. And so you start to hear those sort of things. And when that momentum starts to take shape, the noise gets louder.
Oh, that's really interesting. I want to get Jay. I want you to weigh in, but I got to go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
No. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what you have to say.
Why are you laughing?
Because of y'all.
I feel like they're intertwined. I don't think it's one or the other. Like Key just said, if you were to let go of Carson Wentz, and that would have been Frank Reich being on his fifth quarterback in 5 years. Gee, just think about that. Fifth quarterback in 5 years. Wow. And for Carson, look, I went back and I watched the tape the other day. Key said something I thought was fascinating. He said, sometimes your quarterback can make the O-line look worse than what it was. I watched the tape, man. Like, he wasn't patting the baby. He wasn't holding on to the ball too long. Like, those dudes are coming off those corners. They're coming off those edges fast. And look, I think if it wasn't for Carson Wentz, they wouldn't even be in the game to begin with. The one fumble was on a QB sneak. So I do want to press pause and just slow it down a little bit. I know we jumped to DEFCON 5 whenever it's Carson Wentz, considering what he went through last year. But I think if they shore up that O-line, they're waiting for Eric Fisher to get back. But I would bet on Frank Reich kind of shoring up their scheme offensively in their next game, and obviously some questions defensively too, because Russ was able to throw it over top a ton. I think they're going to be okay against the Rams.
I don't think they will be. And let me say what I find interesting.
I know one thing, that right tackle that just got pushed to the ground, he need to figure out how to that dude got pushed to the ground.
Especially against Seattle's defense. I hear you.
But when you brought up Irsay and Ballard, to me that's key. And I'll tell you, so to speak, and I'll tell you why, Key. There are two distinct philosophies to me here, Rams, Colts, because what's everyone saying? And Key, you might look and see something different, but this is what everyone's saying. Here are two rosters. If they got the right quarterback, they could go all the way, at least really seriously make a run at the Super Bowl.
I certainly thought that if the Colts got Carson Wentz, it was getting ready to be a game changer.
But this is what I'm saying. One of them went bargain bin shopping. I know Wentz can do things. He's done things in the past, but he's been in steady decline like a year and a half. Like, things have been unraveling. Phillip Rivers was old. He could do it, but he's old, right? So you don't have to pay a premium for those dudes. The Rams identify Matthew Stafford. They gave you a former number one overall who went to 2 Pro Bowls and a Super Bowl, 2 firsts and a third. They here's our chips in the middle of the table. Get me that baller right there. The Colts got a little bit cute. Let me see who I can finagle, who might work. I don't have to pay as much for him. Now these two teams are meeting. There's no reason the Colts should be behind the Rams. I would be surprised if the Colts beat the Rams.
Well, here's what I would say, Max. No, I know. That's how I talk. The Rams have a relationship with the Detroit Lions because the new general manager in Detroit was the Rams pro personnel director. So he worked with Les Snead. So it was easy communication. Hey, I've been there with Jared Goff. I know what that is. Oh, good. I'm glad you do. Take him. And it was an easy deal. The Indianapolis Colts actually inquired about Matthew Stafford prior to Carson Wentz, but the deal was already done. So they basically said, okay, we'll settle for this because of the relationship. He had his best years under you. Okay, let's try and make it work. Jay is right. The offensive line, quarterback can't throw if the offensive line is sitting in his lap. There's nothing he can do. But there's times where the offensive line is not sitting in his lap, and he's holding onto the ball or throwing it to the other team.
What you mentioned the other day, if he's one step to the right or the left.
One step to the left, or he doesn't get back away from the center fast enough to set his back foot in rhythm and let it go, things could be disrupted, timing can be off. It's only one game, right? We don't start the trip until we get into 2 and 3. Now we start to stress out. 2 starts to stress the fans. 3 and 4 stresses internally because at that point, the season can get away from you. Teams losing
Gangster in the NFL, there aren't that many games.
Exactly.
Matt, I want to call a quick timeout.
Yeah.
There was only barely 1 or 2 people that I remember from this network that were praising the Rams for making that move to get Matthew Stafford. Everybody else was poo-pooing it. People were saying he's just another quarterback. So just to put it into perspective, let's remember who they were playing against. They were playing against the Bears and Matt Nagy, who went for it on 4th and down multiple times because he didn't trust their defense.
That's fair.
Well, I would say that, Matthew Stafford looked better whether it was the Bears or not. The offense just looked different.
Yeah. I understand.
It did. It
just
did. Like
and
when
the
people
Colts are
say
going against Russell Wilson, who now we have as the lead in MVP.
I want to get to another.
Number 9
point.
Number 9 in the Detroit uniform didn't look as good as number 9 in that Rams uniform.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.